drink.
We're good to go? We're live? Okay, we good on your end, Jay?
Officer. Chief
We're off and running. Welcome to.
a deadly force.
Can I go now? Welcome to City Council this evening. We're gonna excuse council members Henderson and Shields tonight. They have commitments, they cannot make it. So we're just gonna jump right in and get going. 1.1, review of this evening's agenda. Comments, questions, goals?
No, I do know that Courtney is gonna be here. I'm assuming she'll be in the audience for 7 o'clock.
Oh, cool, okay, you'll take that?
Yep.
Okay.
Unless you want to, I got a letter, you can read it.
Awesome. Okay,
And then,
future agenda items.
kinda with that, with the whole Sterling Scholar thing, after we got the 400 people list, I was like, maybe we don't need to recognize those. Plus with, they get recognition at their own school and stuff. So.
400 though.
It wasn't 400, but it was a lot. Like, just from Herriman High School, I think there was like 50 something Sterling Scholars.
Nice. I was watching some other cities' council meetings last week or so. They have kind of a more outlined recognition program for people where they give them the certificate and those kind of things, but it's not just, I don't know, spontaneous, I guess. It's at least more spontaneous. I don't know if that's something you all would be interested in.
I think
Doing
it needs
something
some
a little
structure,
more
maybe.
structured.
Yeah.
I don't know, just a thought.
Open to it, yeah.
Or have different, Mill Creek has a program where they recognize kids, they do a essay contest and recognize kids, the mayor and council do it. So I don't know if that's,
I think they do it as a separate dinner, it's not actually part of their.
then they recognize the, I don't know. Just, that's one way to encourage engagement, right? I guess.
Yeah, and I kind of thought about maybe it's like a recognition, like how we do the coins and stuff, like the culture coins, like it's
Oh, yeah.
your basic job or you shouldn't get recognized for that. I mean, being an awesome student or awesome athlete, those are scholastic or, extracurricular, but going over and above, like this one tonight, teacher of the year,
Yeah.
like in her space and that kind of thing, but other than that, I don't know. I'm kind of rethinking about how we, or like the boys pushing the vehicles up the hill, that was, like, those things are not normal.
And those are more, not to suggest that school things aren't community oriented, but maybe if we steer it towards keeping focused on community oriented stuff, because they do get recognized at their schools and things like that, there's just like you're saying, graduation and things like that, so maybe, unless it's like just really crazy different than what they would normally be seeing at school.
Like chess champion of the world or something like that, but.
Yeah, if you've got any ideas, I think we're open to.
We can
Maybe spend
try to
a
put
ton of-
something together, yeah, maybe after June,
Yes.
What? Not next week?
can I get through this weekend? That'd be great.
Yeah, after June and July, the holiday stuff will be fine, yeah.
Okay, future agenda items, anything for future agenda?
One thing we've been talking about as staff is updating our
Oh, yeah.
noise ordinance. Right now, it just defaults to Salt Lake County Health Department. We had a meeting about it earlier this week, and I don't know if you wanna add anything, Nathan, but.
Yeah, I think we're gonna explore some things, it's just really confusing, it's, our officers really don't even have a way to cite it short of disorderly conduct, and that doesn't always apply. And so, in looking at that, I think we need to have our own, so we'll be bringing you something on that.
You could level it up to failure to comply with an officer and resisting officers, right, chief? No, but plus with the level of construction we're gonna see in the next couple of years, is probably key.
But we do have a noise ordinance. It's like you can't, like you have to start after 7 and be done before 10.
All it says is by reference,
department.
we adopt the health departments, and that's how our ordinance is set, so they have that rule.
Oh, got ya.
But if it's being violated, how are we citing that? We're citing a thing that just says it's section 21 of the health, go read it at the city clerk's office. There's no real way to do it.
Okay.
So we just need to clean up.
Love it.
It was probably a quick fix back in 2010 or 1999 when they first adopted that way, and it's just been, and frankly, the county's changed it 3 or 4 times since then, and the city council hasn't weighed in whether they like those changes or not, so we'll be bringing something.
Nice.
So can we be less strict or more strict?
Do you think so?
we can,
It's
we don't have to.
you can do
We can have our own.
Yeah, you
We
can
can have our
own
complete own policy.
all the projects. And we'll talk more about it when it comes up.
Raves every weekend.
We'll see if we can host these.
Exactly. I'm sure the chief would love a 200,000 person gathering
Right.
for a rave.
Piece of cake.
Okay. We'll go on to 1.3, we kinda hit it. Anything else on 1.3? Okay. We'll do 2.1, discussion regarding proposed policy concerning acceptance of transfer of private infrastructure to public. Bryce?
Okay, so this is kind of been discussed in various forums of case examples that have come before us on private roads or other infrastructure that an HOA or a group of residents come and petitions the city council to transfer the jurisdiction from private HOA road to public for the city to take ownership. So based on those previous discussions in council and what we've heard from those discussions, we did our best to kind of form a policy that followed what was discussed there and kind of the goals of the council to protect the city as far as financially and taking on liabilities that we may not want to, but also providing an opportunity if an HOA or a community meets the standards that we would require for a public road and meets those standards, that there might be a path towards accepting a private road or private water line, private infrastructure to come to the city. So this policy is intended to kind of guide that decision moving forward, so we have a clear path on when something would qualify to come to the city and be transferred to the city. So with that said, I need to turn this on. It is on, it's just not, oh, there we go, okay. So the presentation's pretty short. I tried to summarize the presentation. We have the policy also if we want to pull up the actual policy. But I tried to break it down to just summarize it into 4 main points. Now we can jump into each point of that, and it is pretty onerous to a non-compliant road to get up to city standard, right? But that was kind of the intent of this, and the whole point of this is to have some feedback. And if there are any changes, if we want to lean one way or another, that we get that feedback, and then we come back to actually adopt the policy in a general meeting. So this is the opportunity just to provide feedback on our draft policy. So like I said, it leans on the heavy requirements to become a public road. So, or I keep saying road because that's the main example, but it applies to storm drain infrastructure, water infrastructure, parks, open space, any kind of thing that may be in private ownership and maintenance that is being requested to become public and owned and maintained by the city. So with that said, the main 4 points of the policy are: 1, the applicant proves that either the HOA or group of residents have a majority vote, that all are in favor of moving from private to public. And within this, there are some key things to take note. For example, a water bill will apply to if a private water system turns to public. Probably not a very common situation, but hypothetically, the water bill doesn't just include the water. It includes our stormwater fee. It includes our park fee. So every resident has to agree that they're willing to accept those fees, taxes, whatever it is that comes with the infrastructure, for, in this case, a water bill, before we even look at their application. So that's the first step.
Can I contradict something?
Yeah,
Isn't
go
the
ahead.
majority vote contradictory when you say 100% of property owners? Shouldn't it be a unanimous vote on consent?
So we have 2 different scenarios. HOA vote, they generally have a board or a vote where they have a mechanism
Got you, so.
to make a decision.
Okay.
And so we would accept their majority vote. In the case where there's no HOA, generally there's not a process for them to make a decision for the group of residents. So we would require all the residents in that case to say, yes, we're in favor.
Perfect.
But it's but we can adjust that, like I said, we're here for feedback, so.
And that'd be like if they're on a private lane or something.
Yeah, so like say a private
Or lots.
group of 5 residents live along a private road, we would require that all 5 agree to the request to become public. And I forgot to mention, Blake also worked a lot on this, so he may have some feedback as well.
I think it probably, because it seems a little stringent to do 100%, but if you're thinking about to come in, they would have to absorb a pretty substantial cost probably. So everyone's gonna have to be on board with that rather than having something forced upon somebody who may or may not be able to afford it, right?
Exactly.
They have to be agreeing to that.
Exactly.
When we were looking at it, the situations where there's no HOA, there's only a few, and they're the smaller, like priced at like 5 lots or 4 lots, so it's 100% like 4 people.
Yeah, yeah, no.
It's not like you're going to get 70 people on board.
But it still could be pretty
Yeah, either way, to your point, it'll impact each resident, and so it makes sense at that point to have
No, that's
consent.
good.
And then step 2 is that applicant must deed it or provide an easement for the property to the city, so it depends on the infrastructure we're talking about. A road would require a dedication or a deed to the city, but a water line that may not be in a road or a storm drain line that's maybe on private property, that would require an easement, right? And so, depending on the infrastructure, it would require those to be deeded to the city. Yeah, any questions on that one? Okay. And then number 3, which is where we really get into the nitty and gritty, a condition assessment would be required to identify deficiencies as compared to our city standards. So, as we've seen, some of the private roads aren't built to the public city standards. There's no sidewalks in some cases, the width isn't quite right, there might not be curb and gutter in some of our private roads, it's not even an asphalt road, right? And so, for the example of roads, we would go through and compare what it would take to bring that road up to a city standard road. And we would list those deficiencies, add a sidewalk, get to our asphalt width that we require, install streetlights if there's no streetlights, so there is a standard that we would compare each one to, whether that's storm drain, water. There would be an assessment, and if they're deficient from what our city standard is today for a new road, then they would need to bring that up to our standard. This, like I said, is pretty onerous when you look at the cost of doing those things, right? A streetlight system is very expensive to put in if a road doesn't have streetlights. Sidewalk is very expensive. It may require them working with each property owner to give us the right of way we need to even install the sidewalk. So there are a lot of requirements to come up to a city standard, but that's kind of how we've been drafting the policy, is to come up to city standard before we consider accepting a private infrastructure transfer. And like I said, in the actual policy, we kind of detail each type of infrastructure, what we're looking for. And then finally, once that condition assessment is completed, the requirement is that the applicant is responsible for completing those improvements or providing the funds for the city to do those improvements. So, and that's basically it in a nutshell. Like I said, we have the policy if we want to pull it up and look into any details of it, but.
The only question I had, sorry, was what happens if an HOA just disbands, goes bankrupt, goes away? Are we just gonna say, sorry, you guys are just gonna have to set there with no snow plows? I mean, what are we gonna do then?
That's like in my,
Yeah, so that's actually a question I asked Todd, because we got an email the other day, hey, we're going away, we want you to take care, Parks Department, take care of our entryway landscaping now. We need the city to take this over, and it's like, well, wait a second, so what are our obligations? And can they legally dissolve, right? Is there something that says, well, you've got these obligations, they have to have a plan or a successor to take on their obligations, I don't know. So that's where we are actively researching that one, because
So I know I definitely know of HOAs that own their properties back in the cities because they went bankrupt or just disbanded.
just decided not to do
Just-
anything.
Yeah, it just went away, and then the city just has to assume it.
That's the question I have
that's the law.
to, do we have to
Yeah,
assume,
yeah,
or did
exactly.
they just assume?
The cases I know the city has, I just don't know if they have to.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it kind of depends on if they're a thoroughfare, like they're a through street or a dead end. That if it's a dead end and it's just servicing those property owners that live it on the side of it, then the responsibility is gonna fall on them. But the city doesn't have an obligation to take it over. Where it could be, I'll need to talk about more about it, probably off the record.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious about that, cause I was like, I
Yeah,
like
it's
the
close,
policy,
yeah.
but then I was like, man, what happens if?
Let's say if my HOA, I mean, there's
a
no
big-
way we could come to compliance on any of this.
And
I
it's
mean,
a
the
big
storm's there, the
big
streets are there,
HOA.
but not the width or the easements. Our yards would be absolutely gone, so.
And it's probably a pretty big HOA.
147 houses, but it's not a through, but it's all we have a massive park that, so.
Okay, so I'll wait to hear more on that, cause that was my only biggest question I had after I read through the policy.
Yeah,
That
and-
is-
And if, it sounds like maybe when we bring this back, we can kind of consider that a little bit more. Do you want that considered in this policy, would be my question.
So I would say this is a policy to guide staff on how to take these requests and bring them to you.
Yep.
Some of those decisions are really council, even if you said, put it in there, future council could totally change their mind, and that's the key here. Even if somebody fully met all this and said, yes, we'll meet that, you may analyze it and say, but we don't want that.
What's the cost burden?
For sure.
It's too prohibitive, and I don't know what that, but there could be a scenario where the council says, even though you meet all this, we're still not gonna take it. So, I think, I wouldn't clutter this one up, that's a great legal question, I think we need to get some direction.
Yeah, I think if
it
you
may
would
happen.
if we do
Yeah.
that and then just do some follow-up with the other question that would linger with this whole stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryce.
Do we have something, a topic like that for close sometime soon?
Probably.
Okay.
I can talk about it today.
Oh, we did.
Oh, cool.
You're just trying to drag this out.
You just wanna stay here?
No, I just got a couple questions.
But your attention is locked.
No, we're very fluid and very liquidity right now, so we're looking at park and park strips and doing all that fun stuff, so.
Okay, 2.2, discussion of the proposed fiscal year 2025 and 26 capital improvement plan. Both capital equipment projects. Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I did give you some handouts. The top two are the projects being proposed for 25 and 26. The third stapled packet is a detail on the proposed bond projects. It gives you a little more detail on where the obligation arises from and some more detail. It also would tell you if it's not included in the bond, what payment options are available on that. So we'll go through that, but I wanted you to be aware, because the slides are very generic in nature. It was really if the public was watching or somebody in the room didn't have the packet, they would have at least something to look at, but trying to put this much detail in a slide doesn't work, so. So tonight I just wanted to first review what staff's goals are for the night. So of course, the first is to review and discuss the proposed project list. Next, I do want to discuss the proposed capital projects bond that is currently in the tentative budget. Discuss your support or what issues you might have with this bond or additional information staff can provide. And then just go over what next steps would be with capital projects, and that will largely be dependent on how the conversation goes tonight. So first, this slide is just a overall 1,000-foot level view of the capital projects being requested. So as you can see, for the 2 years, it's about $72 million of projects. It's important to note some of these are funded by grants. As I said, some will be by the proposed bond, so it's not like 72 million of cash is going out the door on it, but it at least gives you an idea of where the projects are situated. Next, I was gonna flip to the 25 projects. and just go through those. We do have our engineering staff and community development staff here so they can answer any questions you might have on the projects. The first one is 6,000 West Road widening, phase 1, so that would be widen the right of way along 6,000 West from Silver Sky Drive to Herriman Boulevard. So that has a cost of roughly 3.4 million. The general CIP would be covering about 1.9 million of that, and then there's a water and stormwater component on that one. The next two I'll lump together because you're fairly familiar with this. So this is the widening of 138 South. It's currently split into two phases, but the reimbursement that we will have to execute with Edge Homes, it will be one reimbursement agreement. So this one, just as of note, it is proposed to be covered by the bond. So this is one of the more time-sensitive projects because Edge will be done with the paving this summer, so we will have to make a payment. So if the council's not supportive of a bond, we would need to look at other financing options on that fairly quickly.
Likely canceling and shifting other projects out.
And that third packet, there is quite a bit of that 1.7 that the general fund has to cover. It's not impact fee eligible. Part of it is, but part of it isn't. So it's not like impact fees could cover that whole amount. The 7300 West Extension Phase 4. So this is design, and that covers Herriman Main Street north to Butterfield Creek. And it will include a traffic signal at Main Street and 73 West. And then 6400 West, so the first two, so phases 1 and 3 are being proposed to be included in the bond. Those have MDA requirements, so that's why they're being included in the bond. The first is 64th West from Herriman Boulevard south to Olympia. So that is also another time-sensitive one because, correct me if I'm wrong, but Olympia is currently doing the work on that, so we will have to pay them fairly early in the summer on that. Phase 3 is from Midas Creek to 118 South, and then Phase 4 would be designed from 64th West to 134 South. A few traffic signals are being proposed. One is at 138 South and Sentinel Ridge, one at Rex Peak Way and Sentinel Ridge, and then Real Vista and Mount View Corridor. This one, just as of note, does involve also some road improvements, so it's not just strictly a traffic signal, it's other improvements to address some of the deficiencies at that intersection. That's why the amount is about 1.8 million on that one. 73 West, so that is a reimbursement agreement we currently have that's based off of impact fees collected. I just threw the entire amount we still owe in there, but most likely we won't be paying it out this year, but it's to get it in the budget. The next one, the 118th and 126th South, so that is a reimbursement agreement that will actually most likely be rewritten, but that covers extensions on both 126th and 118th that are being covered by impact fees that Teton Ranch will generate. That number is just an estimate of what impact fees will come in, but that could change depending on when development occurs over there. The Brook and Matty Heights reimbursement, that's another one. We have an existing reimbursement agreement. That's the entire amount we have left owing. Most likely, we won't have impact fee collections for the full amount this year, but it's to get it set in the budget, so if it does come in, we can pay it. This next two, that Silver Bowl and Rockwell, are the same thing. Those are reimbursement agreements that have been executed. They're based off of impact fee collection, so we don't pay those out unless there's actual impact fees collected. The Transportation Master Plan, so this is a yearly amount we budget in, so engineering can do updates to our various master plans related to transportation. Sidewalk trip hazard removal, this isn't a new line item. It used to, however, be in the operating funds for streets. So this is splitting it out to capital. It was with another line item in the operating budget, so it's difficult to say how much is actually increasing versus what we were previously doing because it was being lumped with some other things. The streetlight replacement project is also another project. It used to be in the operating fund, so every year we had been putting 70,000 away, and then the streetlight department would do upgrade projects using that money. So it's really not a new project, but it's just moving it out of operating and into capital. It makes it a lot easier on the accounting end to roll the funds over if they don't spend the whole amount. Next one, so we move on to parks. I'll flip the screen. So first is the Herriman Historic Park. This is a MDA agreement, so this is actually split over 25 and 26, so you'll see it again when we discuss the 26. Next is the Hidden Oaks Park K, so that 70,000 is just design funds. And that, just as a reminder, especially for the public, that's a park that's planned to be combined with the Olympia Hills Park. Juniper Canyon Recreation Area, so this is Phase 1C. So it includes some elements that were already in 1A and 1B. I've listed them out. It includes trails, play pods, disc golf course, and dirt jumps. Mountain Ridge Park, so this is a concept design for the 10-acre park. Some of the components are required in the Mountain Ridge MDA, but not all, so that's why it wasn't put in with the bond.
One that
That's the 10 acre.
across the street from the
Yes.
Midas Street Trail asphalt improvements. So this is the asphalt trails along Teton and Jackson Park. And it does include a pedestrian crossing at Teton. And this is to complete a reimbursement agreement with Right Homes that has already been executed. I think it was last month. Time kind of melts together, especially during budget time. Creek Ridge, so this is a reimbursement agreement for a portion of that park. A larger one is the Park and Trails Master Plan, so this is to update the Parks and Trail Master Plan and redo the impact fee analysis since it's been a number of years since that's been done. So that's why the amount is so high.
right here.
Oh my god. We just did that. No.
Once you get done, it's basically time to start it all over again.
Especially in high growth cities, it's like.
The next one is Hidden Oaks Open Space Improvements. So the Hidden Oaks MDA does require open space improvements. Previous budgets had its 1.1 million split over a number of years to equal 5.5. 1.1 was budgeted in 24, so this is the remainder. Of note, the MDA doesn't specify a dollar amount like some of these other projects, but this is the amount staff is recommending, but you do have discretion on that amount. Next one is Creek Ridge Regional Park. So this is required in the Creek Ridge MDA, and it does specify 2 million, at least 2 million has to be spent, so that is one where the MDA does dictate the amount we have to spend on that. The only
Okay.
and then one of the other requirements in the MDA is once the property is deeded to us, we have to start design work within 30 days. There's a few playground replacements, kind of, to me, that's the more fun stuff. The Parks and Rec had asked for Artistry Park, Indian Pony Park, and Ranches Park for playground replacement, so that's what's making up that 220.
It may not be a playground, just so you know, it may be, we'll get with the neighborhood and see, cause they may not need a playground, right? They may want pickleball or.
Nice.
Next one, which was discussed last week, is the Stamp People Multi-Use Trail. That one is planned to either have grant funding or some other additional funding to pay for it, so it's not technically using general capital project funds for that. And then the last one, just some discussions when we were going through the ice ribbon revenue and setting those rates, is we did want to set aside any extra revenue for a reserve for replacement in the future. So that's the amount we're estimating, revenues will be over expenditures for next year. We'll do a true up at the end of the years, cause most likely the Ice Ribbon won't spend their entire expenditure budget, so that amount might increase and we'll come back with a budget amendment to shore that up. That's parks. Well, I think it's a fun one, as much as capital projects can be fun, so I'll flip the slide. So the community center remodel, so as Wendy has mentioned, we do have CDBG funds coming, and we're also received an EECBG grant, hopefully I got that acronym right. That will cover the majority of this cost. The first year in this 25, we do have 30,000 for design that the city's paying for, and then the rest we're anticipating the grant will pay for, the 239, 390, the rest of that. The next one is land purchase for a future fire station, so this is planned down by Salt Lake Community College. Of note, we would be using our fire impact fees for this, that's an eligible use, so it's not necessarily general CIP paying for that. And the next one is Station 103 replacement, so that 500,000 is design funds, and then you'll see when we go over 26, that's when the actual project is scheduled for. Stormwater's got a couple projects, so one, I gotta flip this, nope, it's on there. Storm drain retrofit projects, so engineering has gone through and identified a number of retrofit projects that need to be completed, so the plan right now is they will do those projects as funds allow. I'll be discussing with the Public Works Director about fee rate study, and that might be something we can do in-house because we've got our excellent management analyst that can help us do that. So we might be able to get a faster turnaround than the water rate study, which was definitely more complicated. And then also Storm Drain requested some master planning funds, so that would be their master plan, their impact fee studies, impact fee analysis, just the yearly updates they do to that. Next one is the Hidden Oaks Backbone 1A, so this does have multiple components to it. It has a water and storm drain component, and there is a little bit of road. I just took the largest component, which was storm drain, that's why it's in storm drain, but it is based off of, it's got multiple components to that. Finally, there's kind of the other, so the first one is property acquisition, so this is our ACUP purchases near Camp Williams. So I budgeted in 2 million just as a placeholder. We of course don't purchase land unless we know, A, there's gotta be land to purchase, and then B, that we're going to get reimbursed from the Army or the state for that. So it ends up being a wash. Next one is my favorite, the ERP system replacement. So this would be to replace our financial software. This would be the first component. So we already have 100,000 saved, so this would be 2 to make it 3, and then we in 26 put in another 3. So the first phase would be the financials. Hopefully we can also find an HR system that HR likes that will integrate with our current system. We'll have to look. A future phase would be utility billing. It's a little more complicated, and they will usually want the financials in place first, so. Next is a UDOT agreement that we did enter into last year that the council approved to install fiber along Porter Rockwell and Mountain View corridor. So that's $34,000 the amount of the agreement. And then water, just before we get to this one, so the Public Works is working on the water master plan. You'll see that in the next council meeting, or maybe possibly the one after that. The only water projects that are currently in the budget are ones that has another component that's not water related. So for example, if it's a transportation project that has a water component, we did budget a water component in, so we're not piecemealing the projects together. But they do also need to update their IFFP and IFA master plans every year, so that's where that's coming from. So I've been talking a lot. Are there any, on the 25, are there any questions staff can answer? We will have time at the end for general comments, but I've thrown a lot of projects at you in a short period of time.
On one traffic signal though, Mountain View and Rural Vista. Is that, do we get any state funds or UDOT participation, or is it all on us?
Yes, so to answer the question, generally in the past, UDOT's covered the cost for the actual signal, but we're on the hook for widening the road, the striping, everything to get it ready, but they'll cover the actual cost of the hardware for the signal.
We have an existing agreement with UDOT for that for a few $100,000.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 or 2, one of those numbers.
So yeah, they don't cover the roadway widening costs, but they do cover the signal.
Or the roadway widening on Real Vista.
Or in the
Yeah,
middle
the cross
section.
The cross street.
It's just the middle section that needs to be open, cause that other side's massive.
Yes.
It's like a 6
We've
lane
been working
freeway.
with their design team, they're building a bridge over that one. Or, yeah, it's going over, so they're gonna make the bridge wide enough so the road, we can face it.
That's odd though. And but it's
Otherwise,
UDOT
that-
land though, right? We have the easement to build the,
Correct, yeah.
We have a cooperative agreement that identifies who's responsible for what.
Okay, good news is the 26 project list isn't as long, although it still has a lot of projects, but. First one is 7300 West Extension, so this is from Herriman Main Street north to Butterfield Creek. This is the one that will be funded with the $10.5 million grant we just got from the state. Next is 6400 West Improvements, so this is a Creek Ridge MDA obligation, so it obligates us to construct 64th West from Herriman, Maine, or Herriman Boulevard to Midas Creek. This is another project that's proposed to be put in the bond. Another note on the bond is the enterprise fund portion, so if there's a water and a stormwater portion, those funds will pay for those themselves. It won't be included in the bond, and they have sufficient revenue right now to cover it, so. Just know as you're looking at the sheet. 118 South Phase 2. This is another one that's required per the Creek Ridge MDA, so this is covering widening 118 South from 64th West to 68th West. This one actually should have been built within 4 months of the MDA being executed, so we are behind on that, so I expect that one to move fairly quickly. Next one's another bond project, so this is Danzy Boulevard Phase 3, so this is from Danzy Boulevard. This is Danzy Boulevard from Silver Sky to the border of Olympia. It is required in the Hidden Oaks MDA, so it's another one that's proposed to be put in the bond. A couple traffic signals, so one at 118 South and 64th West. I have confirmed with engineering, so this will be split with South Jordan, and South Jordan does have their portion of the budget. Next one is Herriman Rose and Fort Herriman, so once that street opens up, the proposal will be put a traffic signal in next year. Rose Canyon Road, right-of-way improvements Phase 1, so this would connect the sidewalk east of Ivy Farms Drive, east of the existing sidewalk, so this would be sidewalk, streetlights, and park strip. The 118 South and 126 road improvements, so that's the same project that was in 25, covering those two widenings. So you mentioned that reimbursement agreement will probably get rewritten, but this is just an estimate of transportation fees transportation fees to be collected. If we don't collect them, we don't pay out on that agreement. Herriman Main Street widening, so this is another one that's in the Hidden Oaks MDA, so this would widen Main Street from approximately 77th West to Main Street. And that 1.3 is based off of bids engineering's got from Ivy Homes on that. Rockwell connectors, similar to 25, so this is one where we won't reimburse them unless we receive the impact fees on that. Transportation master plan, so you'll notice the amount went up quite a bit to 90,000, so this would be a more thorough update on that master plan and IFFA and IFP. The trip hazard removal, so that'll be a yearly project to address those issues within the city, and then as I mentioned in the 25, so the streetlight replacement project, that's a yearly project we will typically budget funds for. We did add a inflation component in 25, it's proposed to be 72.8 in this year.
Same with the sidewalk too.
Yeah, we do add an inflationary component. Then on parks, so first one is, the design is actually in 25, but would be to look at water efficient landscaping along the Herriman Main Street median.
That one made me wanna do flips, so that was good. Thank you for doing that one. I think that will save our asphalt along Herriman Main Street too.
For sure, yeah.
The next one is another proposed bond project that's required in the MDA, so this is the Creek Ridge Open Space Corridor, so this is along 6400 West. It's approximately 30 feet. And engineering had indicated it's most likely going to have to be put in at the same time the Viviano development occurs. Herriman Historic Park, so this is the second year of that project that we saw in 25.
Will the project start in 25 or we're just budgeting funds for 25, 26?
That's gonna come up as we talk about some of these other things. There's a lot of projects on here and our ability to deliver them all at that time. Plus that one's
Fair
a
enough.
Tough one.
That is a tough one.
Just everyone say your prayers that Friday goes well.
The next one should not be in red. I missed that. So this is proposed to be out of park impact fee. So this is a continuation of the Juniper Canyon Recreation Area project. So the cost is split between fiscal year 2025 and 2027. So it's a 3-year project. Next one is the DAI and 118 South Business Center Trail. So this would fill in the gap in the trail network from 118 South to Midas Creek. It's approximately 400 linear feet of trail. Next one's the Rockwell Landing Trailhead Park and Ride. So this would be design funds for that park and ride in the Rockwell Landing development. Then there is a playground replacement for amenity, we'll say amenity replacement's probably a better word for Mineral Way. And then that reserve fund for the ice ribbon. On some other projects, so the 135 is the next phase of the community center remodel. So that's anticipated to include flooring, elevator repairs, partition walls, and ceiling repairs. And just as a reminder, that's being funded by CDBG, so a federal grant. The fire station 103 replacement is budgeted for 26. Just a reminder, the design funds were in 25. Animal shelter design is slated for 26. That's almost 93,000 for that. And then Public Works facility design, so continuation of that project. Just as a note, we had that Public Works facility fund, so that would be coming from some funds that had already been set aside in that fund. And then stormwater, a continuation of retrofit projects every year, so that's another 75,000 for those. Master planning for storm drain, similar to the prior year. SCADA master plan projects for storm drains, so they have a telemetry system master plan. These improvements are planned to be spread over 25 years, and then the Public Works Director did make a notice dependent on available funding. So these are important projects, but at the same time, it's not critical. They have to be done in a certain set time frame.
Did you wanna add an inflationary to the storm stuff, or we kept it straight across for the 10,000?
We probably should. I need to check with engineering exactly how those funds are being used. That's one I'm a little.
Yeah, some of these funds, there's not a lot of leeway in there, so that may be also when they're staying flat.
But Bryce did shake his head when you said that, so. And then High Country storm drain, so this would be a 30-inch pipe on High Country Road to Herriman Main Street. Then the last three are continuations from 25, so the placeholder for any A-cup purchases, another 300,000 for the ERP system replacement, and then 90,000 for the water master plan updates. So with that, there's a number of vehicle and equipment requests. I do want to note the staff report still had the armored vehicle in it. I just wanted to assure you it has been taken out, and I did the staff report before the last council meeting, so I didn't catch that, but it had been taken out. First are a number of conference room upgrades. So our IT director did go through, do an assessment and lay out a plan of when our equipment needs to be replaced. The city hall, good thing and bad thing is when the city hall was built, we got all this wonderful new technology. The bad thing is it's all going to die at the same time. So that would be to do upgrades to the conference rooms. Another project is we do have a number of network switches that need to be replaced in 25. They're at the end of their life cycle. 25 is also proposing to replace the community room projectors. We've had a number of issues with those, and it will be nice to get those replaced. 26 has slated to replace the AV equipment in the council workroom. It is time based off of when it was installed with the building, so it is time it's reached the end of its useful life.
I think our intent is to simplify this room. Not so, aren't so many moving parts to break.
The streets department requested a snow plow in 25, and then 26 are accessories for that snow plow. And then Parks had requested a replacement to an existing tractor for 125. We've got a couple security cameras in Parks for 30,000. We had discussed this last week, but the police are requesting a new speed trailer in both 25 and 26, and then the case integration for Versaterm 26. So those we did discuss last week. And then streets, parks, and animal services are all requesting vehicles, and there are detail in the packet. We did discuss the animal services one last week, but the packet does have all of the scoring sheets that Fleet went through on those. I did list out here just a high level all of the bond projects to give you an idea. As you can see, a little over 18 million of transportation projects, and I'll just reiterate it again. I know council's heard it, but if anyone's listening online, all of these bond projects are required by master development agreements or existing reimbursement agreements. So that's the reason why staff's proposing it in a bond versus trying to spread these out and cash financing these. The parks, you can see it's almost 9 million of projects. With the exception of the 2 million, those amounts necessarily aren't set in the MDA. There are some leeway on those amenities and when they're put in. So that's where we get to the total with the bond projects. Finally, just to give you some information on what a proposed bond would look like. One thing to note is a lot of this will change as we have these discussions, and then I've met with our financial advisor, but where the market is always changing, and then he might have some suggestions on how these are staggered, and he'll know more about what the current market conditions are. But with the bond amount of about 28 million, 4% interest rate, so that's what the bonds are currently going for. Issuance costs, and then amortizing that over 20 years, it'd be about a $2.1 million a year bond payment. Because many of these projects are both transportation and park impact fee eligible, they will pay part of the bond cost, the yearly bond payment. The general revenue would be about $400,000 a year for 20 years on that. And just some additional information, because I know this has been brought up in the past. So our bonding capacity, we have about 67 million of bonding capacity left. And I always like to remind people, just because we have the bonding capacity doesn't mean we can necessarily afford the debt service payment, but we do have that available. The total excess capacity is how much of an additional bond payment would we be able to finance. And if this bond went through for the full amount, we would still have about 40 million of capacity left for bonding. This is getting down the road a little bit, but I have talked with our financial advisor, down the road, if we were to do a public works building or if we were going to do a public safety building, there are other financing alternatives than sales tax that are at the same good interest rate. It's not necessarily like alternative financing, but there's some other options we can do. And then just currently, with what we've pledged in sales tax and franchise tax, we have about a $2.9 million debt service payment. That's our existing, so as you can see, that would add another 2.2 million to that. With that, I'm almost done, so we can have the discussion. I did want to give you an idea of what the fund balances look like if the council decided all the projects were good. What would things look like? So general capital projects, as you can see, we started with about a $3.7 million fund balance. Using that fund balance is one of the main reasons we can do as many projects as we can out of the general CIP. As you can see with the park projects being planned, it does exhaust quite a bit of our fund balance, so almost 4.9 million. Road impact fees faring a little better, however, that fund is in a rebuilding phase because we've had a number of projects that have really drained that balance down. Fire impact fees, so we are proposing to charge as much of the fire station rebuild to park impact fee or fire impact fees we can. It's not the entire amount, but because of the growth, we can charge some of that construction there. And then the fire service area, even paying cash for the new building, you can see they'll only be using about 1.6 million of their fund balance, which is great because there's definitely other things coming down the pipe for them. Water.
Kyle, is part of the 1.2 million out of the impact fee for the property for the new station?
Yes. It's that and then design work for the rebuild. And then water impact fee looks great, however, none of the strictly water projects are included in there because the master plan is still being worked on. So we will have to come back and discuss that with you at future time. And then stormwater would use about 700,000 of its fund balance. With that, a lot of information. What questions do you have for us, or any additional information you initially see that you would like on any of these, or just general thoughts? I'll just open it up.
My only sad ones are two. The two I get most complaints about are 5600 West. Don't see that anywhere for a while, and that really needs repair. There's a lot of traffic on it.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So we did originally have it planned for this next fiscal year to rebuild that road, because yes, we've got many complaints about it. But Justin informed us, and maybe you're aware, Jordan Valley's actually planning a water line to go through that road. So we didn't want to rebuild the road and then just cut into it and ruin our brand new rebuilt road. So we're going to partner with Jordan Valley when they're doing that water line to align our project in the same time frame so that they can put their water line in, cut up the road, and then we partner in rebuilding the asphalt and the actual road behind it. So
It could save us some money doing it.
yes,
For
it
sure,
could save
and
us
that makes
save us
sense.
some money.
What's the year?
timing.
That's what we're still waiting to get final word on. That's why you don't see it up there currently. We're thinking 26, but we're not 100% sure on that.
Should we put
Are
a
there other-
placeholder though for it?
Is that coming out of pavement management or is it coming out of CIP?
That would be pavement management, yeah,
So-
yeah, good point.
So it is budgeted, so it's just not in this, it's
Yeah,
not CIP.
that's a very good clarification.
Do we have other options or alternatives, like maybe milling out those sections that are horrible and
Yeah, so we had a pavement specialist take cores and look at the asphalt, the base underneath. So their recommendation was that all of the asphalt needs to be replaced, but we do need to treat the base underneath the asphalt, which is the underlying problem. So we were like, hey, what about a 2-inch mill where we're not taking out all the asphalt and replacing that? That'll be more of a Band-Aid than a fix. So we did explore different, hey, can we just do a mill and overlay or just rebuild the lanes and not the shoulders? But that asphalt is about 25 years old, and so it is getting to its end of life kind of area. And so you could, but in the long run, you'd have to probably come back and do the rest
sure.
another time, so.
And it's essentially the core set our bases.
It,
Work.
yes, exactly,
So
so,
anything we put on top is done.
So we're gonna hope to milk it for another year. Maybe.
yes.
Well, and I'd love.
Depending
not
on
having
the
that
timing of
coming
the
up.
Jordan Valley Water Project pipeline going through there, so, but yeah, 26 is tentative what we've heard on that.
Okay, and then the deferrals. The only dirt road I know that we have as public still is Gina. Why cannot we get that done? $304,000 is just for right-of-way acquisition, I assume? That's not for the road.
Correct. The
Yes,
road's about
that would be
3.2, 3.4.
So we're talking a few more years.
We need to talk, so we've done this general plan, this capital plan, you have this huge sprint. The reality is, I have two constraints. Small one, staff capacity to actually move this many projects through.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the fiscal constraint, which we're going to talk about probably when we come back in October. We have committed ourselves to a lot of things that we just do not have the funds for in the foreseeable future. So there's gonna have to be a lot of discussion about which ones we do. I don't have a great sense, but we put through the existing capital plan they put on there. We looked at it yesterday and we're probably $18 million over the 10-year window they took. Too much. We don't have that much. We're short that much in revenue. And that doesn't include a public works building or a fire station, or a police station, right? Those are not in that. This is just a lot of the road work. So, the short answer, or actually a long answer to your question is, I don't know when we get to be able to fund that one. If it's a priority, then we have to look at the list and take other projects of similar magnitude and push them out.
Right. I just think a city of 70,000 people shouldn't have dirt roads. I just think it's ridiculous.
And there may be some development that happens along there that picks up part of that, but yeah, it's a tough one for this short segment to cost $4 million. We also have some right of way challenges with Gina Road.
Sure. I think only one. But
We think we'll only have one after, if the development happens, then that'll take the other side.
yeah, I just grumble about that. It's worse than whack-a-mole on that road, and it's ridiculous, and it's always like that. It gets graded, and 2 days later, it's right back. I know we're gonna, I think, still do the milling overlay on it, right? So, anyway, I'll keep yelling about that, because I drive it every day. And that might be a little personal, but it just seems silly.
Yeah,
We can't get it taken care of.
the intent, we talked about coming back in October, November timeframe to talk about, specifically it was the art review, but we wanna talk about the CIP at that point. That'll give us a little bit, more time internally to make some recommendations and really hammer that down. So the first years, frankly, everybody threw in everything, hey, this is what has to happen.
Sure.
Now we have to step back and say, okay, what's realistic? What can we actually do? There's like I said, the staff delivery, can we actually get these projects done? And then there's the, how can we afford it? After commitments, and
That's
I
kind of.
think right now, we're dealing with all the commitments that have already been made for years. Some of those reimbursement agreements are a little old.
For sure,
Sitting
they're
out
real.
there for a while, and then, of course, the MDA obligations. And I think we also are gonna have to start thinking differently when we bring projects to public meetings and things, instead of saying, or even internally as staff, here, let's design it, probably needs to say, you have this much money, you have to design to this number. So if that means it's pretty bare bones, then that's what it is, right? We at least get something on the ground. We just don't have the money. And I have a lot of reservations about our impact fee funds. I have serious concerns about their one-time fee when you're built out. We're 65% built out, so I don't want us to get addicted to that. We're always gonna have those funds to pay for these projects. Just because they're eligible doesn't mean there are going to be dollars there to fund those projects.
Oh, for sure.
So,
And there won't be, because we're already behind on
And I think that our staff does a really good job trying to find ways to also help fund those, right? We're always ready for grants, we're always looking for money from our partners around to help us get things done. So, I mean, like some of those park projects, we can write grants to help fund some of those and reduce the city's portion.
that. Yeah, I agree, I know, I was talking to Bryce this evening about another portion of 7300 West, just a little portion that's like, oh, we just wish that we could get that. And he went to work and the staff went to work to really figure out how to make, something complete, stretch money to figure out, no, I agree 100%. It's certainly nothing to do with you guys. It's just a frustration on my part. It's like, how come we can never have enough money to do this stupid dirt road?
it was pretty eye-opening when we started looking at it yesterday, just looking at realistically what we see our revenues doing. They're still on the roller coaster, kind of up and down. We had bets on the vibes. We just need to be more pessimistic, I think. This month. Last month was really good. This month's kind of
Did the correction.
yeah, it's also, there's a lot of reasons why it went down, but I think there's just concern on the ability, what is the city's ability to fund all of these requirements? So at some point we have to decide, yes, they're all needed, but some are probably needed first.
Yeah.
That's what we'll have to do.
Well, we were at ICSC this weekend. It's all gonna be all better, cause everyone said yes, they're all gonna come through.
Well, it wouldn't hurt us, but it may not, probably not the perfect,
Were you gonna
probably
say
not the
meetings?
perfect, turnout after Sunday night, so.
No, I hear you, thank
After
you,
that
thanks
bad
for all
news.
the work you do, and it's a challenge. Can relate to that,
Yes, thank you.
my household budget, it's like that.
And I guess we're kind of coming back a little bit to some of this.
Yeah, we'll be bringing stuff back.
So the ultimate goal, especially for the CIP, is I would like something we could publish to the residents, so part of that will be coming back to you once we're working on the 10-year model. We'll come back with some recommendations on what to do with these projects, cause we just can't fund everything that's in the CIP right now to get that to a point where we can be reasonably confident we'll be able to do these projects when we say, so we can publish that, so that's the goal.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Okay, except we're not done yet. 2.3 discussion on the fiscal year 25 and 26 budgets. So you're just looking for any more questions before?
Yeah, they have to.
Randy, I know you wanted to bring up one.
That's the one I've heard of. There was a request to discuss some of the market adjustments that are being proposed.
Yeah, first, before he starts, I'll tell you, thank you very much. We had some questions from a resident pop in this afternoon, and I sent them to Kyle, and within an hour, I had answers back, sent them back to the resident, very thorough and efficient, so thank you for all your work.
I don't know if some of those answers came up in the partial meetings we had all through the last couple months, and so remembering where things pulled from and what lines added what. So.
Just being able to respond that quickly and when you're already over your head.
You hit me at a really good, that email came at a really good time. I
Good
just
job.
finished something and I could just pop over and get it
Perfect, thank you
taken
so
care of,
much.
so.
So this is where we're talking about the increases in budgets on, you have a handout for that too.
Yep.
I have no issues with any of them, maybe except the one that I emailed you about, and that's for the counselors. I don't feel comfortable personally with, I mean, we stepped into this role 2.5, 3 years ago, knowing what our salaries were and kind of accepting that for that time frame. I think we could relook at it at a future date, possibly, maybe in a year and a half, 2 years. But I think all the other market adjustments are fine, especially for staff. I just don't think when we're cutting budgets and trimming and cutting events and cutting hairs, splitting hairs on for what we provide. That's where I sit. I mean, 4,000 isn't a lot, $20,000 total, or 35, everything's in there. It's not a lot, but it's significant. That's some of the values of the events we've cut, such as Miss Herriman or street lights and Christmas lights and all those other little amenities. So.
Just to be clear, we did not cut the budget for this.
Well, we didn't, sorry, yeah, we didn't cut the budget, but we trimmed those, yeah. We stopped funding those events.
And I'm sure you had a different take.
No, I have the same take as with any other salary. It is not our salary. You should never look at it as, it is city council member salary, it is mayor's salary. It's not Teddy's salary. It's a salary set for a position at the city. And so if you have a philosophy about keeping in a pay scale, in the average range of the pay scale, and you keep in the average range of pay scale, versus in 3 years from now, you bump it up way more to try and get back in line with where it was where it would have been compared. Because it's never just arbitrary, oh, we should have this much of a raise. It's always backed up by a very long sheet of comparables with every other city around that's anywhere close to us, and just trying to keep in line with what a salary should be for that position. So I don't look at it as, I think, I don't know, you can never give yourself a raise if you thought, oh, this is just for me, I want this for me, that kind of stuff. It's just a position. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and it's not that it's just for us, but as an elected official or public servant, I can't go be a city council member in Bluffdale or Draper or any other city. I live in another city. So comparing it to their salaries or their budgets it's kind of arbitrary to that aspect, because we couldn't take that position, but an engineer or admin, definitely, they could go work in any city, so those would be compensatory, but, yeah.
Sure.
I don't, when we're in a budget constraint, especially where we're trying to correct, over the next 2 or 3 years course action, and we've got our budgets, I mean, this is already budgeted, so it's in there, it's a balanced budget, but I just think it seems early and, to me, I think that in 2 years, having that adjustment or even a slight adjustment would be ideal or more ideal, when we're not in the trim mode, when we're freezing positions and not adding necessary, city functions. Now, the funds won't go that far for any of those city functions, but it's still.
Sure, no, I understand your point 100%, but I don't know, I guess, I know we can have a discussion now when Stephen,
Yeah,
Jared are here.
those other, yeah.
And, well, aside, just because you're saying in a couple of years, because it's early, I don't know what you mean by it's early, because it's early in your election cycle and who's elected.
No, and I'm not even
Do you
looking
know
at
what I mean?
election cycles, I'm just looking, I mean, 3 years ago when we came in, we knew it was the 14.5, but understanding through the budget process where we are and where we're not adding anything, I think this would be one of the last things that we should add at any point in
Oh,
time.
I totally understand what you're saying. And that was, when Mayor asked me about it yesterday, I said, my only issue is simply that, you have to consider it as a position. Next year, some people are gonna have to run, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have to decide,
And then it's like, maybe that is a time that people, because there is 100%, a huge chunk of this role is public service.
Yep.
Put way more hours in than what
That
you
we're
do.
ever compensated for,
Okay.
true, very true.
And knowing full well when you run that that's the case, right? But, and then, well, maybe, cause sometimes when you run,
I think Jackie
and then
lied
you
to
come
us.
to your first meeting and they
10
have.
hours a week or something like that.
And they have a big list of, here's all the other committees we'd like you to serve on
Yeah.
and there's no compensation for those either, right? And so, or that's part of the compensation you're receiving, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just simply saying that has to be a value there too, right? I don't know, I think that there's pros and cons both ways, and I know exactly what you're saying about this year.
When is are we going to a public hearing on this then?
It'd be next,
I think that's.
So we'll
where
have the
a
public-
bigger discussion.
And the other two.
They'll get notice accordingly.
right, we're required by state statute to do a public hearing, so.
Yeah,
And that's for every position that
That's
we're
for the-
increasing, yeah, cause all public.
No.
The only ones that are required, it's executive positions required and the elected positions.
So what's on this list right here?
No.
No, some of those
Some
won't
of
be
those won't be.
subject to the public hearing, but like the administrative assistant's not
It's
subject.
basically manager level and up, and then the elected officials,
So Todd.
yes.
Well, and for the executive staff, it's any change that occurs, not even a market
Salary.
adjustment, but if any, if you do a COLA or merit, whatever we wanna call it here, if there's a set percentage,
So there will be a
those
few
all have to be
Now,
discussed.
their public hearing will be separate from your public hearing.
Required to be
Okay.
public separate.
Yeah, that's the new legislation.
Same date?
It
Yeah.
can be the same day,
Are we
so,
planning it on the same day?
yeah,
So it will be on, but a different hearing.
one back after.
Anyway, I 100% agree.
That's a good viewpoint though, I mean, I just struggle with it.
good.
And then next year, if we do it, it's gonna be struggling too, cause then it's election
Exactly.
season, so never a good time, right?
It's never a good
Yeah.
time, exactly, for sure.
Okay, any other questions, budget before?
I don't know right now, just thank you, it's been a good process, I 100% like this process so much better. It's been very insightful and great. Thank you for all the hard work that's gone into it. So when the public goes, how come they don't have any questions, it's because we've been through the process and we've been getting good answers, so thank you.
It's just the opposite extreme of they don't have any questions because they haven't had a chance to look at it.
Or we don't know what questions to ask, right? Yeah.
No, for sure. Great.
Okay. No? Closed after?
Yeah, we got 15 minutes.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to adjourn and go to general meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn work meeting and go to general.
All in favor?
Alright.
Maybe, I don't know.